News.
Thursday is, are you going to that tour of the MJ place?
My day starts at 8 o'clock in the morning at Frontier Village. 1 o'clock I will be on the tour. And at 3 o'clock I have a meeting here for safety. And then I might get to go home by 5.
You are going to that tour.
I might have work.
Well, that's why you were talking, you said ribbon cutting. I thought that had to do with
Double-pipe transit.
growing facility.
Double-pipe transit. Having a grand opening, ribbon cutting.
Where's that over Prescott?
It's going to be at Frontier Village. Target, Home Depot,
Oh, yeah, Harbor Freight.
Harbor Freight.
Yeah, okay. I was thinking it was something like an apartment complex or something. This is going to be a long night.
Huh?
It's going to be a long night.
Have you looked at your packet?
Yes, I have.
Half of it is all one thing.
We're going to executive session.
Oh, it is.
We're going back to the old system?
We did.
We did or are going to? It's in there tonight, but it's not official until we vote on
Well, unless you vote no.
it. I was opposed to it to begin with, come on.
Let's see votes no on what?
How you doing? Put an executive session at the end of our meeting.
Oh,
If you vote
yeah.
no, it'd be in the middle still.
Yeah.
No more voting on how many people are left.
Pretty obvious thing. Hello, Ron.
I'm doing good, how about yourself?
Big Craig Brown, see you. He's looking for you. Who? Craig Brown. Oh, the guy in the white shirt back there. Hi, Chris.
Good evening, Ron. See you. Doing good.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
How are you, sir?
I'm hanging in.
Good. I'm going to raise my hand and call the public.
Oh, okay,
I
cool.
want to talk about the
Cool.
Talk about the what?
thing about
Of what?
Yavapai Regional Transit.
Oh, okay, same thing he was talking about.
Well, you got the little card, right? You should have.
I didn't.
If you didn't, it's his fault.
Oh,
Did I get a little card?
I don't know what he's talking about. Oh,
Some kind of a little card for the, must be an
they
invitation.
were stuck in your,
The mailbox
yeah.
as of today?
No, it was done 2 weeks ago.
Everything going all right?
I picked up my mail today, I picked it up, I don't know.
It was done before our last meeting. So it was done over 2 weeks ago.
I don't recall seeing it.
Probably got stuck with something else.
It was an invitation for this grand opening?
Yeah.
There you go.
It goes up here. There you go.
Hey,
There you go.
this
That's
is
where it really goes.
Damn boys.
That's bad, huh?
Tracy didn't say that. I shut my mouth.
If I can get you in trouble, Tracy.
She's a lioness.
Matt,
The death letter thing.
Matt Santos. Did you get that email that my wife wanted?
You need more glasses then.
Oh,
She's
okay.
been here for the last 2 or 3 months.
She just laughed when she saw it. So.
She works at the senior center on Fridays.
You're talking about the
Yeah,
behind Dan Moore.
yeah.
She works at the senior center?
She's one of the lioness that collects the money to walk in on Fridays. She's handing out the gifts when your door prices on Friday.
It's just like Christmas around here.
I'm not sure you're looking at the same
Yeah,
way
it
I'm
just
looking.
keeps giving and giving. It's like one present after
4
another.
rows back.
It's like the in-laws showed up and they just
Yeah,
woke
behind that guy
Yeah.
with a striped shirt.
Yeah, they keep giving and giving.
I'll take your word for it, but I didn't realize I needed
Yes,
to take
ma'am.
my glasses that bad.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Gift that keeps giving.
The gift that keeps giving.
She's the one giving us the papers in the computer.
Computer system was down almost all day. We couldn't get our emails
See,
or anything.
I've seen somebody come in and out of it, but I never paid much attention.
Everybody's was down. I called him this morning and he fixed
But
it.
I will now.
Darren won't eat.
Well, I think,
Am I in your way?
no, you're fine.
But it's really the operating.
He's being 19 again.
He's been that way for a while. Now that his daughter's here.
I met Jamie. Well, you were there when she met her.
I wasn't there when she met her. I saw you guys talk.
She had just met her when you walked up or got out of your car. She was telling me, watch out, Dan. Somebody's pulling in there. You were pulling in.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't let me get in with your back to me.
My daughter had to remind me.
Can't hear the Prius when you're going forward, and he wouldn't move. And he was standing in my parking spot.
That's what the horn's for.
He's so quiet, I don't want to wake anybody up.
Well, you just talk about the Prius.
That's what it was, yeah.
The cranes that are all electric.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they've got bells on them, so people could hear them coming.
Yeah. The Prius, when you back up, because it's always an electric, it beeps.
Right.
But other than that, you drive down I went to Jerome the other day, and this guy steps off right in front of the haunted hamburgers, just this much in front of my bumper. And I was like, he walked probably 100 feet before somebody told him. So he went down the middle of the street. I mean, I expect that, like in parking lots, grocery store parking lots.
Well, Jerome's a good spot. They walk in the street one day, don't even.
Yeah, right there with the haunted hamburger.
That's not very safe.
I don't like, it costs too much gas and electric to go the long way. Takes more time too.
So here I go.
When we get these keys to the city, these are cute.
Yeah, they just recently got them. They said,
Where do they get them from?
the town just recently got them. They're up there with a presentation they're gonna give. Chamber.
Are we going into executive first, or are we gonna put it till the end now, Chris?
Oh,
I'm gonna
hopefully
make a
move
motion
it to the end.
Because I know it's in there, I just didn't know how we were gonna handle this
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
It comes first. Our constituents would like it.
I know. It was worth a try.
They just need to understand that we do nothing in executive session except get instructions.
Okay, you guys ready? Let's see. You guys ready? Okay.
Rock and roll.
Okay. We'll go ahead and call this meeting of the Chino Valley Town Council to order. Please rise and remove your hats for the invocation. Father God, we thank you for this opportunity to gather together to do the town's business. Father, we would ask you that you give us wisdom and that you give us clarity. Father, be with us as we conduct the town's business. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Ms. Hart, may we have the roll call, please?
Well, good evening. Councilmember McKee. Here. Councilmember Wojcik.
Here.
Councilmember Hatch.
Here.
Councilmember Best.
Here.
Vice Mayor Croft.
Here.
And Mayor Marley.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Introductions, presentations, and proclamations. First is Town Council and Chino Valley Chamber of Commerce appreciation of businesses that have applied for new business license in the months of March and April 2014, and also appreciation of a long-standing business, Yavapai title of Chino Valley. Ms. Watts, I believe you're doing the presentation? Okay. Oh, okay. Fine.
I'm here to help.
All right.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and the town of Chino Valley. My name is Tracy Shimakowski, and I'm the president and CEO for the Chino Valley Area Chamber. And tonight, we're going to recognize businesses, new businesses for the months of March and April. And what I'm going to do is read through all of them, and then once I'm done, I'd like to invite those that are here in the audience to come on up and give your 90-second elevator speech, so to speak, and introduce yourselves. So our new businesses are Neighbor's Garage, Arrow Maker Rock Shop, AZ Defensible Space, Mountain Earth Technologies, Reiki 4 Paws, Moondance Promotional Products, Warrior Massage, Horizon General Contractors, Cowboys Sweetheart, ABC Mini Storage of Chino Valley, Arizona Grass Raised, doing business as Nature's Fed, Bojinkan Jinsu Dojo, I know I probably messed that one up, Kayok General Contractors, Inc., LC Auto and Truck Repair, PuroClean Disaster Response, Two Bites Bakery, LC Plumbing, Inc., G. Salisbury and Associates, ABC Restoration, LLC, Susan Cornell, DBA, Chino Valley CMT, J&E Arizona Greenhouse, LLC, and Treasure Trove Resale Shop. I'd like to welcome all of you to Chino Valley, and for those that are here, please come on up, and we'll just have you come up one at a time.
All right.
Who's first?
You go right ahead.
All right.
See, I walk around like this because I keep looking for sympathy, but everybody keeps telling me that look it up in the dictionary. So I got tired of that, and I went and bought a dictionary, and guess what I found out? I couldn't read. So my name is Robert Vallejo, and I own Arrow Maker Rock Shop. We make jewelry, both contemporary, Native American, and anything I can get away with. And we also have rocks. We do a lot of lapidary work. We repair jewelry. And we'd like to invite you folks that have a lot of grandkids. We have some presents for the grandkids. See, I know how to get to the parents. And we teach what your great-great-great-grandpas used to do with rock, how to make arrowheads, traditional work, no cheating.
Yeah.
But I wish you folks would all come down and see what we have. You don't have to buy anything, but better watch that pocketbook. How's that? I'm located at 3225 North Highway 89, on the right-hand side, next to the real estate office, by Ken Larson's realty office.
All
Next.
right. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members, Chino Valley. I am Sarah Weber, and I am Reiki 4 Paws. I am a holistic animal mobile. I come to the animals. It is just for ongoing health. So many times, people don't go to holistic medicine for animals until the end of their life. But I am working with many animals with training as puppies all the way through to maintain their health. What Reiki is not a religion, and it has nothing based on religion. It is a Japanese relaxation technique so that the animal can relax to allow its body to heal if it has anything. It is also very effective when used with modern medicine, either Western or Eastern vet care. So I am not a vet, I'm not a vet tech, but I am someone who is a complement to any of those things. I do it mobily so that I go to the animals. That way they can relax in their own home. So that is what I've been doing.
Would that work on the mayor?
Yes, actually, it would work on the mayor. It's very widely used for humans as well as animals.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Allie Steinberg. I started a business that I call Two Bites Bakery. I'm operating under the Arizona Cottage Bakery law, so I can bake from my home kitchen. I make cookies, biscotti, scones, quick breads, yeast breads, and I sell them at the Chino Valley Farmers Market on Thursdays and the Prescott Farmers Market on Saturday mornings. One of our things that we try and do is to use as many local products as we can. And so I have my own chickens, so all the eggs that I use, or at least most of the eggs I use, are from my own chickens. I purchase fruits and vegetables from the local growers in our area to add to my foods. Strawberries from my garden. Everything I bake is handmade, no machines. So I don't have a machine to do the kneading. I knead it all myself. It's all mixed by hand. No artificial colors, flavors, or preservatives in any of my foods. People ask me if I'm doing gluten-free, and I'm working on it, but it's really, really hard. So come on down to the market on Thursday and see me there. I've got lots of really good things. And I brought you a sample. I brought a sample of my most popular cookie that I'll put on the back counter back there for you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Doug Bailey with PureClean Disaster Response, and it's been our privilege to be operating and servicing this area in the Quad Cities for just over a year now. What we offer is water, fire, mold mitigation services, as well as biohazard and trauma cleanup. I can tell you as a former naval submarine officer that when you get out of your rack to go on watch and your feet hits the deck and there's water on the deck, that's a bad thing. So the same thing in your homes. When you wake up in the morning and you're walking down to the kitchen and your feet are in water, that could be a bad thing. So you need to call me. I'm Doug Bailey with PureClean Disaster Response, and we'll extract that water from you. Some of the other services that we offer are reconstruction, new construction, and rebuild as well. So if we go into your house and we mitigate the water and we have to get into the wall cavity to dry it out, or perhaps you have mold and we need to mitigate that. We don't leave you hanging with, now I have a hole in my wall, what do I do? Well, we'll just put a dresser there instead. Instead, what we do is we come back, we rebuild your wall for you, do the repainting. If there's a cabinet that had to be destroyed because of the mold, then we rebuild it for you or get you a new one. And we also work with insurance companies or self-pay as well. So I'm Doug Bailey with PureClean Disaster Response. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
We'd like to invite the four to come up and get a photo op, and we also have a welcome letter and a little presentation for you.
I'm not going to say anything about bubble heads at all.
Matt, let's try and do it around this gentleman right here.
Thank
Can we
you.
do that? Can we do something special here? And no. Okay.
Sometimes.
This is cool.
Thanks for taking photos. Sure.
All right, thank you again. I thought you
Now.
were going to say something about disaster response too, Chief. Thank you.
That was kind.
All right.
The next thing we'd like to do is appreciation of a longstanding business here in Chino Valley. And tonight's recognition is for Yavapai Title Agency. They've been in Yavapai County since 1963. Yavapai Title has 8 local offices throughout Yavapai County, and the Chino Valley branch was opened in May of 1990. Next May, they will be celebrating their 25th anniversary in Chino Valley and hope to be here another 25 years. So come see Rhonda Uswa and Sherry Warren for all your escrow needs. So ladies, come on up.
I know where I'm going tonight.
Yeah.
Is it on yet? There we go. We have a bottle of Granite Creek wine, specially engraved by our own Rick Nichols, honoring Yavapai title Chino Valley. So you've got that for you ladies, and I keep forgetting little tasting glasses for you all. Actually, I have some in the office from the luncheon.
Thank you.
We also, what's that? We also have a key to the city. And a letter of appreciation. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Our next item is Dan Jackson giving us a presentation on connection fees.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As you know, Dan has done several rate analysis for us on the various options that we're faced with the general obligation bond. Recently, the council asked that we do some analysis based off of some buy-in fee options. Dan's here to prepare it and answer all your questions.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Jackson, before you begin, Mr. Vallejo and the rest of the folks that have come for presentations, if you need to leave, you can. Mr. Vallejo? All right. Okay. Cool enough. I spent the afternoon with Mr. Vallejo. It was a joy. He's got a neat little rock shop. Anyway, go ahead, Mr.
Thank you.
Jackson.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. As Mr. Gritman indicated, my name is Dan Jackson. I am the Managing Director and Chief Executive of Economist.com. This is my fifth or sixth presentation before you with regards to the particular issue we're going to talk about tonight. The issue involves the town of Chino Valley's investment of approximately $13.5 million in water and wastewater system improvements and acquisitions. This is a major investment for a town the size of Chino Valley. It's really what you would call a game changer. It's going to result in a significantly different utility that you have in the future than the utility that you have today. It is also going to significantly benefit your ratepayers and your citizens in several ways. In the first place, you're going to have a much bigger system. You're going to be able to generate what's called economies of scale, which means it's not going to be as expensive to serve your customers as the system as it exists today. You're going to be able to take the profit or the net income that Prescott has been able to generate from the accounts in Chino Valley and basically transfer it to the town of Chino Valley. You're going to lower the rates for the people who live in Chino Valley but who are currently served by the city of Prescott. You are going to invest in infrastructure that is going to enable further economic development in the town. You are going to have newer infrastructure that is going to benefit you, your children, and your grandchildren, and you're going to have greater control over your wastewater system when you acquire the wastewater treatment plant. These are all significant benefits to the town, but those benefits come at a cost. The cost of $13 million has to be generated in some way, shape, or form. And when a town makes an investment of this magnitude, it is understood and accepted and realized that that is going to result in additional fees that are going to be assessed to the ratepayers. So if you recognize that these investments are going to be good for the community, the issue that we face today now is going to be how do we pay for it and what is the best means of paying for it? Well, there are a lot of different ways that we can pay for it. We've been looking at these different alternatives over the last several months. We have looked at finances. We had looked at alternatives. For example, we've looked at funding the $13.5 million through the issuance of a revenue bond. A revenue bond is a bond that is paid for out of the rates from the utility system. In other words, you have to increase your water and wastewater rates to pay the debt service on the $13.5 million. In the alternative, you could issue a GO, or what's called a tax bond. That tax bond would not impact your water and wastewater rates, but it would impact your taxes. So it's going to impact different people in different ways. There are also certain hybrid ways that you can look at to fund it, maybe a little bit of either way. However, each rate plan alternative depends on an additional revenue source from the town, and that's what's known as buy-in fees. The buy-in fees are fees that are assessed to every new connection to the town, not a connection that takes over and like a new homeowner who buys an existing house, but an actual new home that's constructed. When a new home is constructed and it hooks up to your system, that results in what's called a buy-in fee. The logic behind the buy-in fee is that the town incurs a certain amount of cost in providing service to this new connection where the connection didn't exist before. And the issue that many cities have struggled with is, who pays these costs? Is it the person who builds the new house, or is it the other people who are already here? These buy-in fees are a critical component of your overall financial plan. So, when I went before you all about a month ago, we talked about a couple of different alternatives, one being the revenue bond and one being the GO bond. But since then, Council has directed that we do a few additional scenarios implying what would happen if you were to vary some of the buy-in fees. What impact would that have on your long-term financial plan, and particularly what impact would it have on your ratepayers? So we're going to go through that tonight in this hopefully brief presentation. I want to start this off by talking a little bit about your rates.
Excuse me for a second. Did you have a question, ma'am?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify for the public that your scenario that you just gave of the brand-new house buying in would also apply to an existing home that is going on to the system that has to pay a buy-in fee.
That is correct if the existing home was not connected to the system.
Yeah, and that's the major situation here.
Right. And the reason and the logic behind that is that when a new connection connects to your system, there is cost involved in providing service to that connection that didn't exist before. There's additional capital costs. You know, you've got to make your treatment plant bigger. You've got to lay additional lines. All of that costs a lot of money. And the question becomes, how do you finance that and who pays for it? So let's first talk about your rates. This chart right here compares the rates of a typical residential resident in the town of Chino Valley who uses 7,500 gallons of water and 5,000 gallons of wastewater service. Now, that is a fairly typical usage level for a residential customer. The average residential connection here in the town uses, I don't know, somewhere around 7,000 to 8,000 gallons of water service a month. So, if you're a Chino Valley resident, the amount you pay for water service is right about at the state average. See, a Chino Valley resident pays $36.48 for 7,500 gallons of water. The state average is $38.14, so you're actually a little bit below. However, on the wastewater side, you're significantly above the state average. You pay $58.31. The state average is only $30.74. So when you combine the two services together, because many people are served by both water and wastewater, the total is $94.79 for a Chino Valley resident, as opposed to the state average of $68.88. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind about comparisons with the state average. They're not always perfect comparisons, and there are several reasons for this. The first reason is that 30 to 40% of water and wastewater utilities here in the state of Arizona set rates that don't cover their costs. So what that means is that their rates are actually subsidized by the general fund. So their rates are lower, but people have to pay taxes in order to support the system. So it's not really fair to make that comparison. Secondly, Chino Valley is a smaller town with homes that tend to be more spread out. It simply costs more to serve a community like that than it does a community like, say, Phoenix. You look at a city like Phoenix, you have hundreds of thousands of homes all crammed into a fairly limited area, And so when they're all together and you got these dense subdivisions all together, it doesn't cost really all that much to provide service to each of those homes. In Chino here, where our homes are further apart, further spread apart, then that's going to make a difference. A third reason is the terrain. You know, you have more challenges in pushing your sewer system through the terrain here than many areas do. As most of you know, I live in Texas. I live in Frisco, Texas, a suburb of Dallas. Frisco, Texas is flat as a pancake. There are no hills, there's no mountains, there's no scenery, but it's also very inexpensive to provide water and sewer service because you're not pushing water over in hills or anything like that. So geography makes a difference. So it's useful to make these kind of rate comparisons, but just because your rates are above the state average, that doesn't mean you run an inefficient system or you've got costs that you shouldn't have or anything like that. Sometimes it's just sort of a force of nature at work. Okay, let's talk a little bit about where we see the system going over the next 10 years. When you put together a long-term financial plan, one of the first questions you ask is, what are our expenses, revenues, accounts, and consumption going to be, not just now, but in the future? This chart takes a look at your system as it exists today and projects the number of accounts that you're going to have in the future. As you can see, right now you have about 553 water accounts and you've got about 1,674 wastewater accounts. As you can see, we're projecting that by the year 2022, you're going to have 1,798 water accounts. The reason why your water accounts are projected to grow as much as they are is because you are going to be acquiring the Prescott water system, which are over 600 accounts, and the Wilhoit water system. With that, you're going to be acquiring 944 accounts in a single year. And then, as you can see, we're projecting you're going to have some additional growth, 40 to 50 to 70 new accounts per year. On the wastewater side, these accounts from Prescott and Wilhoit are water accounts only. Yes, sir?
Excuse me for a second. Can we have one question?
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, with the 650 Prescott approximately customers coming on and the 100 Wilhoit, that is 750. Where do you get the other 194?
It's more than 100 Wilhoit. What is it? It's 200, 250?
We have been told for the last several months that it's 100 coming on with the Wilhoit.
Yeah, it's about 100 in Wilhoit, but there's also additional water accounts that are coming between Road 2 North and Road 3 North. Everything from McDonald's, Alco, Alfonso's, all the way down to Sonic would be the southern one. So there's another 150 estimated somewhere up in there.
Okay,
where the
because
total's coming from.
the difference between 944 and 750 is
Well,
almost 200.
650 Prescott and then
Right.
70 to 75 internal growth, that comes up to about 944.
But I want to make, these are projections. These
Right.
are estimates.
I understand.
We are going to be off. We're not going to hit these numbers dead on. These are all just estimates right now,
I understand that. However, April 29th, 2014, when they had the water and sewer, one of the meetings, the figures there were given at 755.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And for projected growth for the next 3 years was 30, and you have 75. Where did
Right.
the extra?
And that's the Highway 89 1 and 2 accounts that would be added. Also, in the last several months, we've looked and we've seen an uptick in some of your growth projections.
We have several other subdivisions that are on water right now. Highlands Ranch and Bright Star are all seeing an increase in building permits. So all of those get factored into future growth. They're all on the town's water system.
75 permits?
Well, again, they're projections. They're projections. Yeah, we are anticipating, if we get water and sewer out to 89, we are anticipating for the first couple of years, we're going to see an increase in commercial growth along that corridor. By providing the water and sewer, you're going to see the growth. We've already seen it on Road 2 North, where we installed water and sewer, and you saw everything from where Arizona State Savings and Credit Union, that happened in 2007, 2008. Walgreens came in 2007. When we extended sewer down Center Street, O'Reilly opened their doors there, specifically because utilities became available. We are anticipating for the first couple of years, 17 and 18, a higher than normal growth within that corridor. But again, they're projections. We're going to be off.
Okay.
We are going to be off.
By 45, though, that seems a lot to be off.
Okay.
Well,
If you would, just one more follow-up, and then we need to continue onward. Did you have another follow-up question? Okay, thank you. And we'll have several questions during this, but.
absolutely, but I want to make sure that I'm being
Being
we're not
clear,
trying to
you
hide
bet.
anything. We're not trying to deviate from what was said in April. Things changed from April to July. We have had lots of subsequent meetings on this. As I said, these are all projections. We're going to be off. We may be off by 45, we may be low. We're hoping we're low. All these are just projections.
Okay,
So,
cool.
okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, one final thing I'd like to add is that there's a pretty standard economic phenomena that happens when significant investment is made in new system infrastructure. What you see is a buildup of demand over a number of years. Word gets out that the infrastructure is coming, and you see sort of a spurt of new growth that happens when the infrastructure opens up. Classic example of this is the building of a shopping mall. Shopping mall builds up. First thing you see that happens within a year or two of the mall is you see it ringed with peripheral stores, restaurants, that kind of thing. So it's a typical economic phenomena. Doesn't always happen, but I think it is reasonable to make that assumption. I can also tell you that the rate plan and the rate plan that we show you here would not be materially impacted if the total ended up being 45 in 2017 instead of 75. It's not a material difference that would impact the rate plan. Okay, just for little background purposes, this is the map of the town, and the yellow portion of it is the Highway 89 service territory that we were talking about earlier. Now, let's talk about the capital improvement plan itself. Again, there are
Excuse me, folks, I got a name medication to call it.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you for coming, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, folks, very much.
Hope he doesn't get a ticket.
Okay.
Nah, he's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Continue, Mr. Jackson.
Let's talk a little bit about this capital improvement plan, because I think it's very important to understand the level of investment that's being asked of the taxpayers and the ratepayers and the benefits that they'll get from it. The capital improvement plan that we are proposing is a $13.5 million plan. It's composed of the following elements. The purchase of the Prescott water system and the Wilhoit water system would be approximately $4.2 million. We have done an extensive amount of valuations of the Prescott system. We think that's a very reasonable number for them. They appear to be fairly happy with it. And what it does is it transfers those 650 accounts to the town of Chino Valley. Prescott's rates are higher than Chino Valley. I know that for a fact because I designed Prescott's rates. So, and Prescott charges a 30% premium to Chino Valley. That was my idea too, by the way. Well, sorry, but unfortunately, you see, that's important. This is a very important distinction. You see, it costs Prescott more to serve you than it would cost Chino Valley, because the Prescott system is so spread out. You're so far away from the basis point where Prescott is that the cost is just significantly greater. When Chino Valley takes it over, you would be paying Chino Valley inside city limit rates, and those rates would be lower, significantly lower than Prescott's rates are right now. Yes, ma'am.
Is there, Ms. Hatch?
The water goes less than a mile from those things to our house. That doesn't cost, I mean, you're talking an office amount. You're going to have a hard time convincing us.
Right.
And don't forget Carl Tenney was on this council and was the assistant town manager. You know, I think you're going too far with that.
There are
You'd have to
many-
prove
there are
the
many
statistics for
components.
that.
There are
Ma'am,
many
please,
components
for a
of a water system other than just the delivery of the water itself. There's the administration, there's the debt service, there's the overall maintenance, there's the fact that the people in Prescott have to travel all the way out to Chino Valley to do any service calls, anything like that. There is the fact that the Prescott system is a very expensive system to operate, and when you're part of the Prescott system, you are responsible for all the Prescott costs, not just the Prescott costs that are in your particular service area. The analogy I like to use is that if you live in one portion of Chino Valley, you don't just pay taxes on the roads in your portion of Chino Valley. You have to pay for the entire roadway system, because without the entire roadway system, it doesn't work. Just like the one small area of Chino Valley that's served by Prescott, that has to be supported by the entire Prescott system, and therefore you're responsible for those costs as well. So the bottom line is that the takeover of the Prescott accounts by the town of Chino Valley will result in a significant reduction of the rates for those residents in that area. Now, the wastewater treatment plant purchase from FAN would be about $3 million. In addition, the capital investment in the Highway 89 areas 1 and 2 would be about $6 million. $3 million for water and $3 million for wastewater. That results in a total of $13.5 million. This is an investment directly in the system, in the future of the system itself, and in the future of the community. So, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go through a couple of different rate scenarios with you. We completed our analysis of the impact of varying the buy-in fees and what that impact would be on monthly water and wastewater rates. So I'm going to show you 4 scenarios. I think I can go through this fairly quickly. The first scenario is the current rate plan that was adopted by the town of Chino Valley last year. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what the rate plan would be if you decide to fund these $13 million with tax bonds as opposed to revenue bonds. The third thing we'll do is we'll show basically scenario 2, however, taking out all buy-in fees assessed for connections in the bond service area, Highway 89. And the fourth scenario is what would happen is if basically we eliminated all buy-in fees, and what would impact would that be on the rates. But before I go into that, I want to have one more chart to talk a little bit about the buy-in fees itself. I know that there has been a lot of concern about the fact that the buy-in fees are what they are. They're about $6,000 for wastewater connections and they're $4,000 for water connections. Interestingly enough, these numbers, they're definitely high, but they're certainly not out of proportion to what you see in the state of Arizona. In Maricopa County, in the Phoenix area, it is routine to see water and wastewater impact / buy-in fees of $15,000 to $20,000. Yuma has very high fees. The Tucson area, Marana, those areas have extremely high fees. The reason for that is that all cities are struggling with the same issues you are. They have these enormous amounts of capital improvements that they need to make to their system, and they've got to figure out how they're going to pay for it. You can pay for capital improvements only through rates. You could eliminate all your buy-in fees tomorrow if you wanted to. But what that would mean is that you'd have to raise your rates higher because you'd have to make up the revenue difference. So how did we get to the $4,000 water fee and the $6,000 wastewater fee? Very simple.
That page is missing.
The wastewater fee is made up of a couple of components. One is the treatment component, and one is the collection line component. The treatment component, as you can see, the wastewater cost is $3 million for a 500,000 gallon per day facility. That translates to about $6 per gallon. New wastewater treatment plants actually cost a lot more than that, so you're kind of getting a bargain at the price. So an average single-family home generates 120 gallons per day. That translates to a cost of about $720. In addition, the cost of sewer line construction is about $55 a foot. And due to lot variations, the average lot frontage is about 100 feet. So the buy-in fee is $5,500, $55 times 100 feet, plus $720, which is $6,220, which was rounded off to $6,000. Same basic logic with the water fee. Cost of water line construction is about $45 a foot, about 100 feet per lot, and so the fee is as high as $4,500, but that was rounded down to $4,000. Remember when I said earlier, one of the challenges that the town of Chino Valley faces is that you've got lots that are spread further apart. So you know what? If you have a 3-home per acre subdivision in Phoenix where the homes are all jammed next to each other, you don't have 100 feet for every connection. You do here, and that is just something that you have to come to terms with. So the first scenario is the current rate plan. Under this plan, this chart shows us what the current or the forecast cost of service is going to be for your water utility and your wastewater utility. I know there are a lot of numbers here, but I think that there's a couple that I want to point out that are most significant. Under the water utility, your cost of service is forecast to go from $382,000 to $1.1 million by 2018. The main reason those numbers go up so much is your debt service, because you're issuing all that debt with revenue bonds. And so as you can see, you're issuing a lot of debt, and your debt goes from $73,000 to $635,000 by 2018. On the wastewater utility, you see your cost goes from $1.1 million to $1.5 million.
Excuse me, Mr. Jackson. You're talking about the use of revenue bonds as opposed to
Right.
GO in this.
Right. Mhm.
All right. I thought we were not going to deal with revenue bonds, but
Right.
go ahead and
The
finish.
current rate plan that you adopted last year assumed that you would be issuing additional revenue bonds.
Okay.
That was before the whole GO bond matter came into play this year.
Okay.
So, So, what does that mean? Well, when your cost of service goes up and you have to fund all that additional debt and your other operating costs go up, you've got no choice but to adjust your rates. As you can see, your minimum charge right now is $5.13 for a water user with a volume rate of $4.18 per 1,000 gallons for the first 8,000, $5.23 for the next 12,000, and $7.32 for anything above 20,000 gallons. Under this rate plan, that would go up in 2015, and then it would go up again in 2016, 2017, and 2018. On the wastewater side, your monthly charge is $58.31, and as you can see, that would ratchet up to $80 by 2018. What this would mean for a residential ratepayer who uses 7,500 gallons a month, in other words, what would the impact be on your typical residential ratepayer? Well, right now they pay $94.79. It would go up by about $6.93 in January 2015. It would go up by another $7.54 in 2016, and $9.63 in 2017, and $3.50 in 2018. That's the cost of funding the additional cost of service and revenue bond debt. Now, let's look at scenario 2. Scenario 2 is the scenario that I showed you last time that said that you don't issue any revenue bond debt, you issue it all with GO bonds. What does that mean? Well, what it means is that your water costs go, instead of going from $3.8 million from $382,000 to over $1.1 million, the total water utility cost of service only goes from $382,000 to $593,000. Your wastewater costs actually stay fairly flat over the next 5 years. The reason is that you're not issuing any debt. So the existing debt service you have on the water side stays pretty constant, and your wastewater debt service also stays pretty constant. So what does that mean? That means you don't have to adjust your rates under scenario 2. Under scenario 2, if you issue general obligation bonds to fund this $13.5 million project, you will be able to make all these investments in your community without raising your water and wastewater rates, we're projecting for at least the next 4 years. Now keep in mind, the average water and wastewater utility raises its rates by 5 to 6% every year. So over the next 4 to 5 years, the average water and sewer utility is going to raise its rates by about another 25%. You're going to keep your rates where they are for the next 4 to 5 years. That's a pretty significant benefit of the rate plan. As you can see, the impact on your ratepayers is what they're paying today is what they're going to pay 4 to 5 years from now. So, let's take a look at the third scenario. The third scenario says we're going to issue the general obligation bonds, but we're going to not charge any buy-in fees in the bond service area. Well, what that means is as follows. Your operating costs on the water utility are still going to go up. Your debt service is still going to stay the same, but your non-rate revenues are going to be less. You see, you recover all your water costs. You pay all your water costs from two sources, your rates and your non-rate fees. In other words, your buy-in fees. Well, if your buy-in fees are going to be less, then that means you're going to have to take your rates up a little bit. What kind of impact would that be? Well, it's not going to be enough to make an impact on the water side. The reason is twofold. One, you got a lot more water connections, so you're getting a lot more water revenue. And two, you're not going to have that many water connections in the Highway 89 service area. Any new water connections subject to the fee. On the wastewater side, however, instead of being able to keep your rate flat for the next 5 years, you'll have to take it up a little bit. You'll have to take it from $58 to $67 by 2018. As you can see, you wouldn't have to do an increase immediately, but you'd have to increase it about $5 in 2016, about $2 in 2017, and then not an increase in 2018. The impact on your typical residential user who uses 7,500 gallons, well, under the first scenario, he's going from $94 all the way up to $122 by 2018. Under the second scenario, his rate isn't changing at all. Under the third scenario, he's going to see some increases. So his rate of $94.79 a month, his monthly bill, would go up to about $103 by 2018. Now, let's go to the fourth scenario. The final scenario says you just get rid of all the buy-in fees in their total. No more buy-in fees at all. Well, what that means is that your non-rate revenue sources go down by even more. And so the less revenue you get from the buy-in fees, the more you have to get from your rates. What that means is that under the fourth scenario, you'd have to do a water rate adjustment in 2015. You'd have to take your minimum charge from 513 to 539, your volume rate from 418 to 439, and you'd have to take your wastewater rate from $58 to $62. While your water rates wouldn't have to be adjusted again for 3 years, your wastewater rate would have to be adjusted in each of the next 3 years, from 62 to 68 to 72, and then they could stay the same in 2018. The impact on your residential ratepayer would be that his monthly bill would go from $94 to $100 in 2015, to $107 in 2016, and $110 in 2017. Now listen, I know this has been a lot of numbers. I know that when you look at a lot of different scenarios, you're going to get a lot of numbers. But one very important factor jumps out from this page, and that is that to the extent you reduce your buy-in fees, you've got to make up the revenue from somewhere. And that revenue would need to be made up by adjusting your water and wastewater monthly charges accordingly. I want to summarize this presentation as follows. The addition of the Prescott and Wilhoit and Highway 89 accounts, by and large, will be a very good thing for the town of Chino Valley. It'll be a good thing for the new people there who get service from the town, and it will be a good thing for the existing people too. Because the more accounts you have, the less everybody has to pay. It's that fundamental principle of economies of scale. And so, by taking on almost 1,000 new accounts almost immediately, as well as the growth from the Highway 89 area, that means your rates will not be as high as they otherwise would be. It doesn't mean your rates are going to go down. They're not going to go down. But what it does mean is that your rates are not going to be as high as they would be if you didn't get this kind of growth. The use of the general obligation tax debt is forecast to enable the town to eliminate rate adjustments for the next 4 to 5 years. So the decision you need to make with regards to how to fund this is that if you want to do this in terms of a tax bond, you could do that, and the benefit of that would be on the water and wastewater rates. The downside of that, of course, is that taxes would have to go to pay for the general obligation bond.
Okay, excuse me for a second, sir. Remember you had a
Yes,
question.
How does water used to fight a fire from the system calculate in there? Who pays for the water to fight a fire that comes out of a fire hydrant? How is that charged in this system?
That's generally termed non-revenue water, which means that it's paid for by everybody.
Is that the way Prescott handles it?
I don't recall specifically, but that's the way the typical utility handles it.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
That really concludes my prepared remarks. I know you've got a very difficult decision. I know it's never easy to ask people to pay more for anything at any time for any reason, but do keep in mind that what you're talking about here is a significant investment in the future of the town, which in my opinion is going to significantly both increase the quality of service, and increase the quality of your water and wastewater utility in general. So I'd be happy to answer any more questions you've got at this time.
All right, yes, sir, you're first.
These buy-in rates would be strictly based on frontage at the property, would have nothing to do with tying back into the house, 20 feet off of the road or whatever?
It's a combination of all of that, actually.
What is the number, and what's included in the number you're quoting?
Well, as I went on that page earlier, the buy-in fee is based on an estimate of mostly the frontage usage,
Okay, I own a house, I got 100 feet of frontage,
right? Mm-hmm.
and I pay $55 a foot, but that does not get me back to the back of my house where the sewer line is presently
Right.
going out to the septic tank.
You would pay a fee of $6,000.
That is-
It doesn't matter. You see, the thing is, when you have a water and wastewater system, you have to go by averages. Because, you know, some homes may have 110 feet, some homes may have 70 feet, some may have 90 feet. And so what you have to do is you have to go by the average. And so you're charged a flat fee of $6,000. There are going to be some instances where that fee of $6,000 isn't going to quite cover all the costs, and there are going to be some other instances where the fee is a little bit more than the costs. But the analogy I like to use is that you look at a water and sewer system, somebody who lives across the street from a water treatment plant, it costs the city a lot less to serve that person than somebody who lives across town from the treatment plant. Because the person who lives across town requires all that long distribution system to get, but they both pay the same rate. Because you can't have a separate rate for every single person. That's just not feasible and not possible. So,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Wojcik, Councilmember Wojcik. The buy-in fee is only a function of getting the pipe in the ground. Even when we did the Chino Meadows project, we included the cost of the service connection and the septic tank abandonment within the project. Other projects that we've done since then, like Road 2 North or Center Street, those costs were not included in the project. It's actually a council decision as to whether we include those costs in our project or not. But the buy-in fee is only a function of what it takes to get the pipe in the ground and to accommodate the capacity of what that new person is on both the water distribution system or the collection system, and either the wastewater treatment plant or a new well. So as far as once we get off property, the buy-in fees do not include any of those costs in there.
Okay, Mr. Wojcik has a backup question, and then Ms.
The answer is that we're not, this buy-in fee does not include in getting around the back of the house to where the actual tie-in to the sewer line would be.
That's what I just said. It does not include any of the off right-of-way. We've included everything to get the pipe up to your property line or anybody's property line, but it does not include going from the property line back to where your septic system is, nor the septic tank abandonment.
You're just talking frontage then, that's all you're talking, is the line down the middle of the road?
That's what most buy-in fees are based off of.
I
And
just
that's
want
what
to
the buy-in
clarify
fee is
what
based
we're
on.
including in this.
You're right, but what I'm getting at is that whether we include those other costs in the project are council decisions that have to be made as the project starts to develop. As I said, with Chino Meadows, we tied in 1,170 new accounts, and we did every one of them on-site, and we abandoned the septic systems for them.
I understand all that.
To where other projects, we haven't done it that way because, again, they're just decisions on how we structure the project.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wojcik. Ms. Hatch, you had a question?
I'm going to abandon my question. I think you sort of avoided, I think what you said is that in addition to that buy-in fee, unless council changes the current plan, that people will have to also calculate in money to abandon the septic and also whatever distance it takes on their own house to bring it up to the, from their spot wherever it connects.
That's
up to
exactly
the.
right.
Okay.
And as I said, we've done it both ways.
Okay.
And it's entirely up to the council as to how we do
You
whatever
bet.
projects we're doing.
And that's really a part of our dialogue here is if we do purchase the wastewater treatment plant, then it becomes council decisions. A lot of what we're doing right now is driven basically by code, but if we own the plant, then we have to make those decisions.
I can tell you, previous councils have asked us, and we've developed cost estimates to have town staff go on private property, do all of this work, abandon the septic system, not hire plumbers, not hire contractors to come in and do those abandonments. And we're running about $2,000, $2,500 are what our cost estimates have been for a normal 1-acre lot home. So we're going back about 90 to 100, 120 feet. So just telling you ballpark figures, if the council ever chose to actually choose to start adding those costs into the buy-in fees, which you could, we're looking at about $2,500.
Okay.
If the town does the work.
Okay, about 6,000 and another 2,500 to actually hook up.
Well, contractors got to make money off of
You
it.
bet,
And, you know,
you bet.
that's not what we're doing when we do it. So-
Easy enough. Yes, ma'am, you had
Yeah, I
another
believe
question?
some homeowners also got together in my neighborhood and did it on their own. They didn't,
You certainly can, yeah.
they didn't hire a plumber.
No, you certainly
They
can.
did self-help and managed to
Yep.
meet the standard just fine.
You absolutely can. We're not dealing with commercial properties where you are forced to hire a contractor. You can do the work yourself. Well, you've got a strong back, so.
Quarter inch a foot.
Exactly.
Yes, sir. Any questions? Any questions? We will have lots of things to talk about as a council, and you can see why this has been such a football for previous councils and for us. Thank you. No more questions for Mr. Yes, ma'am.
Page 8 in your presentation is page 9 in our presentation.
Yes, I think,
I'd like to have a copy of this, page 8.
okay, I'll give you mine.
I want one too, because there
I
was
know,
something
yeah.
different on it.
Yeah, I made a last-minute addition, and I think that we had a couple of different versions of this presentation, and I think the one that got in your packet might have been the second to the last version.
Yes, sir. I believe
Here's the last version.
I believe we got the electronic one.
And- yeah, and you have the
but
electronic
we have
copy
to
of it,
print
too.
that out.
Right.
Okay. Yes, ma'am, you had a question? Ms. Hatch?
Again, to fire hydrants, and you talked about the increased cost for Prescott to service those customers in Chino Valley. Did that include the calculation for our fire hydrants, which are on the system?
I honestly don't recall. The study was done 7 years ago.
Where could we get that information?
There is a great water and wastewater rate study that was done by the city of Prescott back in 2007. You can ask for that. Ask for a copy of it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Jackson. And once again, for our audience's benefit, you can see why this has been bounced around by previous councils. It's not an easy situation to deal with. All right. Next is our call to the public. Call to the public is an opportunity for the public to address council concerning a subject that's not on the agenda. Public comment is encouraged. Individuals are limited to speak for 3 minutes. Total time for call to the public may be up to 30 minutes per meeting. Council action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, scheduling the matter for further consideration and decision at a later date, or responding to criticism. Do we have anyone for call to the public? Yes, ma'am. And please state your name if you would.
My name is Ellen Arnold. I am a resident of Chino Valley.
Evelyn Arnold?
Ellen.
Ellen Arnold. Please pull the mic down if you would so the folks at home could hear. Okay.
My concern today is I live in one of the communities that have already purchased the sewer system.
Okay.
And we're still paying on that. And what I'm saying is the property tax addition of 120 or average per household. And I feel like we should be exempt from that since we've already, have contributed and will be contributing as we go on. Not only that, most of the people that live there are senior citizens, low-income families, and when you pass on the rate that goes higher in any community, naturally that is going to follow through to the people that are renting. They're going to have their rent raised. Also, I'd like to know if this does come to a vote, who's going to represent the people that are out-of-state owners, homeowners? They won't be able to vote with the community, so they should be represented in some way. Anyway, that's all I have to say for today, and thank you very much.
Thank you. So we have basically two questions, or one suggestion. The folks who've already bought in should be exempt from property tax since they've already helped pay for the system. And who will represent out-of-state folks? Was that pretty much correct? Okay. Who will represent? And there was someone else over here. Yes, sir.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members, my name is Ron Romley. I am a Chino Valley resident, and I am also the chairman of the board for Yavapai Regional Transit. I know all of you received an invitation like this in the mail. I wanted to come before you tonight to personally invite each one of you, as well as every member in the audience and your listeners and your viewers, to come to our grand opening, which we are going to be having Thursday. It's going to end up being between 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock, which at 11:30 we have guest speakers that's going to be talking about the transit. We're going to have a ribbon cutting ceremony at 12 o'clock, and we're going to conclude at 2. We'll also have our new bus, which is there, will be there on display, so the public can see exactly what you're going to be traveling in, at least until we get our next new bus. Anyway, I want to invite all of you to come. We'd really appreciate it. You know, this is our second grand opening. When we started Chino Valley Transit, we had a grand opening at Memorial Memory Park, and that was a lot of fun. This grand opening is going to be at Frontier Village. It's going to be the Suite 100, which is right next door to Target to the west. You'll see the bus there, and everything's going to it'll fit when you get into the parking lot. One of the other things, because I don't come in front of you very often, and I know that, before when we were Chino Valley Transit, we had to come in front of you every quarter and tell you what we were doing. But I wanted to tell you that last week we ordered our 4th bus. It's going to be a nice bus, electric doors. It's got all the bells and whistles on it. More ride, which gives you a real good ride, especially in the Chino Valley streets. Even though, no offense, Ron, even though our focus is on the Tri-City area and connecting the Tri-City area together with a public transit system, our home is still Chino Valley. And I wanted to relate to you, since we have left the town, that, we spend a lot of money in the town. We house our buses, and we have all of our maintenance on our 3 buses done at Bob's Car. We do all of our printing right here with Tom's Print Shop. As you remember what our Chino Valley Transit buses used to look like versus what they look like today, we had all of our buses wrapped to the tune of about $10,000 that we spent. And also, we fuel our buses here. So as much money as we can possibly spend in Chino Valley, we do. And we're going to continue to doing that until we get bigger and have to move our quarters someplace else. But what I mainly wanted to do is I wanted to invite you and your audience to come to the open house. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've got food and stuff to drink. Not hard stuff, Pat, but stuff to drink. And just enjoy the camaraderie of all the people that's going to be there. Again, that's Thursday, 11 o'clock, Frontier Village, right next to Target.
Okay, thank you
sir.
very much. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to thank all of you who've been involved in setting this bus system up and keeping it going. Thanks
you.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Done
you.
a great job, Ron.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Next for call to the public. Okay. Okay, no more call to the public. Call to the public is now closed. Response to the public. Response to the public is an opportunity for the mayor to inform the public about how town officials address matters raised during call to the public at a previous meeting. The first one is road grading schedule on Aztec between Road 1 North and Road 2 North. Mr. Gritman?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Aztec, we've done the research. Aztec is a road that we maintain. We got behind in June a little bit with the chip seal program that we just completed over in Granada Estates and Road 3 South. We'll be getting back on specifically the grading Aztec in about a week to a week and a half. This week, the guys have been trying to get the weeds knocked down along 89 on some of the other major streets. So. The gentleman brought up a separate issue on it when it came to Aztec, and that was the surfacing of Aztec itself. You know, we surface our streets with the highest quality double chip seal that we can produce. This last round that we just completed here, we're about $45,000 per mile is what it costs for the town's crews, using the various bidding processes that we already have in place, to place a double chip seal with a fog seal over the top of it. This last round we just did, it looks beautiful. We have $90,000 in our entire road maintenance budget. Mr. Wojcik has brought up in the past the possibility of whether we want to start looking at surfacing unsurfaced roads with this $90,000. Right. We still have surfaced roads that are in a pretty sorry state. The council has not given us any real direction on whether you want us to start looking at surfacing dirt streets with this $90,000, and how do you want us to prioritize that compared to roads that are already surfaced in various states of disrepair. If we could, at some point, are we off the topic?
Yes, we're off the topic.
Okay. Well, when it comes, because he did specifically ask about surfacing of a dirt street.
But the agenda says grading.
All right.
Okay. Cool enough. Yeah, that'll be hopefully a future agenda item. Thank you, sir. Item B, complete, comprehensive, and accurate explanation of the $10.8 million wastewater expenditures. Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I got just a brief presentation for you this evening. That's not it.
That was pretty brief.
Thank you. Start. There you go. Thank you, Liz. Actually, it was sort of interesting to go back into history and review some of the records we have. One thing, being on the same software, I was able to print out detailed general ledger reports. I correlated it to, of course, our annual financial statements and our fixed asset records. So I'm pretty confident the numbers I had are very accurate. This is our total Chino Valley debt, and basically I believe the question was, where did we get the sewer enterprise fund debt? As you can see, we have our general government, our water enterprise, and our sewer enterprise fund debt is a $10.8 million. We currently owe $8,830,000 left on that amount. And so how did the town go about, what projects did they do with the debt? And that's what I researched and found. These are the actual debt issues. They started in 2007 and mostly in 2008. We took out 2 loans with WIFA, and we took out 3 loans with the USDA. And we currently, there's our $10.8 million, and we, like I said, we owe $8.8 million left on those 2. Basically, what the town did was the Chino Meadows sewer project with these projects. They did it in 3 phases. I know it's really hard to see, but the phase 1, you have part of Chino Meadows, then you have the Chino Meadows 1, and the rest of it in phase 2. And then everything, Ron, north of which street for the phase 3, the red? Yeah. The stuff north of, what is this street right here? How should I describe that?
It's not really a street, well, it's kind of Cottonwood. It's sort of Cottonwood is where it is the name of that general road that follows that.
Okay. So all that area was sewers, manholes, everything was installed with that. But one of the interesting things that I did find is this is how much we spent by fiscal year, and we started with the design engineering in 05 and 06, but most construction happened in 07, 8, and 9. And as you can see, the total project was $15,370,000. Of that, we only borrowed $10,865,000 because the town received $4.5 million in grants from the USDA. So about 30% of the project was paid for with grants.
Mhm.
So that's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, item C is discussion about revenue bond, explanation to townspeople what a revenue bond for the water and sewer would be, how it works, and the possibility of a revenue bond being on the November ballot. Fortunately, the first part of that discussion about a revenue bond and explanation of what a revenue bond for water and sewer would be, Mr. Jackson gave you a little explanation on that this evening. Interestingly enough, the evening that question was asked, there was a presentation on the agenda that evening already, and for the benefit of our public, discussion on a revenue bond at this point in time is somewhat of a moot point, since the Utility Project Citizens Committee had already discussed the possibility of a revenue bond, a combination of revenue and general obligation bonds, and a GO bond by itself. On May 27th of this year, the Chino Valley Town Council voted to accept the committee's recommendation to place a general obligation bond on the ballot. So we have already voted to place that on the ballot. And so, as I said, discussion of a revenue bond at this point in time is somewhat of a moot point. Continuing onward, current event summaries and reports. This item is for information only. The mayor, any council member, or town manager may present a brief summary or report of current events, or ask a staff member to provide the same. Presentation on information requested by the mayor and council will be made and questions answered. No action will be taken. I believe, Ms. Hatch, you had one on the magistrate committee? Okay.
And the first one is regarding the magistrate committee. Many of you have received the copy of the letter that went out to our magistrate. The employment agreement, or the agreement with the magistrate, called for us to meet and confer with him by June 30th on an issue. Due to some problems with us both meeting on the same date, we've agreed to postpone it until our next regularly scheduled meeting in an executive session.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the second and third item is a report on the NACOG. Tracy Szymanowski was nominated and now is serving on the tourism committee with NACOG, representing Chino Valley. And the audit committee, after reviewing Joe Duffy's application, is recommending to the NACOG council that they approve him as a member of the audit committee. So that will be coming up on Thursday, and I do expect it to pass.
Great.
Thank you, Joe, for offering to help out.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Best, you had one on safety committee? Yes, sir.
We had our safety committee meeting last Thursday with the chief of police and our new fire chief for both Yavapai and for Chino Valley. So we're happy to have them there to go ahead and support us. We talked about our responsibilities coming up on the 4th of July, and we're going to have a training for some of our citizens who will be doing security. But all things in all, we had a good meeting.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any reports on this side? Okay. Did you have a report, Mr. Smith?
Just a quick announcement. This last week, Liz Hart was sworn in as our deputy clerk. Go, Liz.
Yay.
On July 1st, we will be filling the Director of Development Services position.
Okay, thank you very much. My mayor's report for this week is the dealing with medical marijuana. It says in November of 2010, the citizens of the state of Arizona approved Proposition 203, thus making legal the use of marijuana for medical purposes. Because this came from the citizens of the state rather than being legalized on a federal level, the usual means of drug manufacture, control, and distribution were not utilized. If the approval had come from the federal level, marijuana would have probably been grown on large farms in the Midwest owned by the major drug companies, prescribed by your local doctor, and picked up at the pharmacy window at Walgreens or Safeway like any other prescription medication. Instead, we now have medical marijuana cards, local growing facilities, and medical marijuana dispensaries, all administered under the Arizona Department of Health Services. At a study session back in October of 2013, the Chino Valley Town Council went through approximately 100 pages of regulations regarding inspection, inventory control, and security for medical marijuana growing facilities and dispensaries. Because medical marijuana can be legally grown and distributed throughout Arizona, it's essential that the council be informed regarding the regulations for the industry. The regulating authorities for the medical marijuana industry in the state of Arizona are ARS 36-2801, the Arizona Medical Marijuana Act, and State Regulations Title IX, Health Services, Chapter 17, Medical Marijuana Program. The Chino Valley Town Council has adopted several resolutions regarding the marijuana industry. Resolution number 14-1025, a resolution opposing the legalization of recreational marijuana, and resolution number 14-1030, a resolution in support of legislation to impose tax on facilities growing medical marijuana, as well as clarifying the language in the town's Unified Development Ordinance. Regardless of where we may stand on the medical marijuana issue, the majority of Arizona's voters who showed up at the polls in 2010 voted to legalize its use. Since we never know what will get legalized next, I strongly encourage you to participate in your own future. Get registered and vote at the next election. You just might make a difference. Chris Marley, Mayor of Chino Valley. Continuing onwards. Our consent agenda item. All items listed below are considered to be routine and may be enacted by one motion. Any council member may request to remove an item from the consent agenda to be considered and discussed separately. Do we have anyone that wishes to remove any consent agenda items on this side? Any on this side? Okay. Ms. Hart, if you would.
Thank you. 6A, consideration and possible action to appoint applicants to fill the vacancies on the Chino Valley Roads and Streets Committees as recommended by the Appointments Subcommittee. 6B, consideration and possible action to approve the indigent legal services contract with Brian Purcell to provide legal defense services for indigent defendants in Chino Valley Municipal Court. 6C, consideration and possible action to approve the First Amendment to the lease agreement between the Town of Chino Valley and Yavapai County College, which renews the current lease to extend it through April 18th, 2025. 6D, consideration and possible action to amend the regular meeting agenda format by moving executive session after action items. And 6E, council will recess to observe Councilmember Turner's birthday.
All right. And Councilmember Turner is enjoying his birthday elsewhere. All right. The chair will accept a recommendation.
Move to approve consent agenda items A, B, C, and D, and E wherever the council member.
Second.
We have a motion in 2 seconds, I believe. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. The next item is executive session. Mr.
Mayor,
Croft?
I'd like to make a motion to move the executive session back to follow the end of the action agenda.
At the end of the action agenda.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Our executive session will be at the end of the evening instead of right now. Continuing on to action items. Action item A, consideration and possible action to discuss the proposed general obligation bond election language. Mr. Smith, did you have a presentation on that? I believe we have a couple of folks in the audience that can answer questions if we need them. Yes, sir.
Here.
Okay.
We're on 8A.
Yes, sir. 8 alpha.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Would it be possible for us to address this in a minute?
Yes, sir. Matter of fact, we've just had a recommendation to take a 5-minute recess.
Move that we take a 5-minute recess.
Okay.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll resume in 5 minutes. Okay. I have so many papers to go through.
Yes, they just did D.
Is it the same as the one you passed out or not?
There's only one insert, I think.
Yeah,
It
but,
should be the same with that one.
well, but,
I don't think,
Draft 610.
Yeah.
No, the 618 is the one that was given out at the study session.
so we need this, we all need the
We all need the
618.
618. I'm sure Mr. Smith
Mr.
has one
Smith,
for us.
all of us need 618, what's in our packet is 610. So we all need
Can we have the 618 copy, please? Thank you.
Okay. I thought I had it.
It was cool. There was one complaint.
Nobody's
about
confused
the
here.
610.
Thank you, sir.
Already fixed it. Yeah, they passed them out Thursday.
Yeah, I didn't bring mine, I thought.
I watched
didn't
on,
even-
I watched on television today.
No sweat.
It's changing them.
There's
You all will
one
have these in
material
your
difference
emails.
between 610 and 618, and it was one that was going to, that's going to change the wording on them with what that Okay, we have our council back. I'm going to go ahead and gavel us in if that's okay with everybody.
Go, man, go.
Go ahead and call this meeting back to order. Our next item is consideration and possible action to discuss the proposed general obligation bond election language, item 8A. And Mr. Smith, I believe you've passed out copies of the latest revision of the bond, correct?
Yes, Mayor, the 618 version was handed out Thursday, emailed Saturday, and handed out just now.
Okay.
I have additional copies coming for the public should they desire copies.
Okay, excellent. And did you desire Mr. Cafiso?
Oh,
or-
yes, sir,
or
I'm
Mr.
sorry. We
Reeder?
have Mr. Mike Cafiso and Mr. Mark Reeder here. They are bond counsel, and Marcus with Stifel to go through the language with you guys and answer any questions.
Okay. Did you wish to go through the changes, Mr. Cafiso, or just take questions right off?
Mayor, members of the council, at your pleasure, we could do either. What we've attempted to do is hopefully address a lot of the questions that we had from you the last time we were here, plus with a lot of input from staff. We've done quite a bit of, as you can tell, quite a bit of refinement of the resolution. There's some things we're kind of hoping to get your input on tonight. There's a couple of bracketed areas in here, and I could point those out, or you guys could ask questions. However you'd like to start would be at your discretion, obviously.
Okay. If it's okay with the council, I'd like to go ahead, as Mr. Smith pointed out, these were passed out at our study session Thursday night and transmitted electronically and then given out again tonight. So I'd like to draw our council's attention to page 2. The first bullet point from the bottom there, it says Highway 89 water / and it used to say sewer, now it says wastewater extension. And I wanted to, if it pleased the council, I'd like to suggest that we place some limits in there and put the wording between Road 2 North and Road 3 North, rather than placing this in a map format. And I realize folks will have the maps, but I think the wording needs to be in there if that's okay with the council. All right? And I take it that would be okay, Mr. Cafiso, for the...
Mayor, members of council, that would, and that was exactly the kind of help I was looking for, to see how
Okay.
you colloquially would take care of that. So
All right.
we'll make that, and the plan would be that we will, and I don't know if the manager or anybody else has talked to you about this, but the plan would be we'll take what we get tonight with some additional commentary we'll probably receive from staff and the other consultants, provide another draft that will be the ultimate version that you'll consider at a future meeting that will be adopted for purposes of calling the election. So
Okay.
hopefully, we're pretty close. I think we are. And with the kind of assistance you're giving us tonight, I think we can get there, so.
Yes, sir. Well, right, well, while I'm on a roll and have the microphone, if our council would move to item Bravo, or page Bravo 5, there's a...
I would note in between, there are some blanks that we're going to fill in. Mr. Reeder and I are going to address the issue on the involvement of WIFA and how we're going to handle that. So I don't want those things to go unconsidered, but we will be dealing with that.
Oh, okay. Yes, ma'am.
Language regarding the fire protection?
Yes, ma'am.
Citizens from the threat of fire? I mean, we're going to be fighting the fire too, not just the threat.
Yeah.
I think it should be to expand fire service or something like that.
Okay.
2 of the new one, it's in blue.
It'll be the third dot down from the
We can
top
say
on page 2.
From the threat of and to fight fire.
It's just down as threat of fire, Gary.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we'll, how about if we say, and as citizens from the threat of and to fight, comma, fire? Then it covers the threat and the actual
town and
fighting of the fire. Does that work?
Yeah, it's the wording is sort of stilted. What was your suggestion, Ms. Hatch?
Well, I'm not sure. We might talk about fire prevention and protection, fire prevention and protection, maybe.
Oh.
I don't know if that covers it. Maybe we should ask our fire chief who's out there and our chair of their committee. How would you explain the language in the third? Oh, I shouldn't do that. That's your job.
No, ma'am. I was just going to suggest the wording to expand the fire protection capabilities of the town. Would that cover everything that we need? Because basically, as Ms. Hatch is pointing out, we're not really protecting them from the threat of the fire, but we're expanding the fire protection capabilities of the town. And it's not really fire prevention, but fire protection. Would that suit you?
Although there will be some fire prevention in there, but the protection is also important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, to improve fire protection. Okay.
All right, got it.
Okay, to improve the fire protection capabilities of the town. Does that suitable for the council?
Yes.
Okay. All right. One of the reasons that I'm wanting to get this all nailed down, Mr. Cafiso, is I'm hoping we can have this ready to where we can vote on it pretty soon instead of continuing in the wordsmithing process.
I didn't mean to slow you down. You said B5 is where you were?
Hang on for just a second. Well, if it please the council, I'm going to go ahead and give my 2 corrections, and then everybody can add theirs. On page Bravo 5, I had a correction all set up for that bottom paragraph where it says primary property taxes fund the maintenance and operation budgets for local governments. The previous one, the wording was sort of stilted, and I wanted to commend you. You corrected it before I could complain about it. So that was at the bottom paragraph on Bravo 5.
Okay.
All right. And then last but not least is on page Bravo 7 at the very bottom. It says the maximum interest rate on the bonds would not exceed 7% per annum. And I realize that we don't have a firm percentage from the folks at WIFA yet, but that is a scary number to have in any bond language. And so as soon as we can get that lowered, I would appreciate that to get to a more realistic number. Okay? Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. Thank you for inviting us up. Understand, as you all know, we're working hard towards utilizing the WIFA program, and the WIFA money is 3% money, maybe 2% money, maybe somewhere between high 2s and low 4s, again, depending upon where interest rates go. And having worked in the business for 25 years, I've seen interest rates move very, very quickly in a very, very short period of time, so we don't want to get you in a box by any means. If rates went up, we would have to shorten the debt, and that could have some vulnerability on the tax rate side, which is also very important to your community from a sensitivity standpoint. So work with me on that. I guess I'm probably comfortable lowering that a little bit. Now, remember, this is what's in the ballot question.
You bet.
And I guess, Mike Cafizo, is it required to be in this paragraph as well, or can we just put it in the ballot question?
Mayor, members of the council, it's required by statute that it specifically state the maximum rate in the ballot question and in that portion of the information. I would draw your attention, though, to page B11, and you'll see that for purposes of, and we could probably include a cross-reference there, you'll see in footnote B that for purposes of running the estimated debt service schedule, we've used the 2.9% interest rate, which is the rate Mr. Reeder's firm provided in connection with the proposed WIFA financing. So,
you bet.
So it's push and pull. You know, you don't want to go too low, and you don't want to go too high and scare people away, but you don't want to go too low and then not be able to do the deal.
Understood. It's probably like complaining about the weather. There's not much I can do in reality on it because we have to work within certain parameters. It's spooky to me to have that high of a rate listed. Yes, ma'am.
I just wonder if in that paragraph you could say a rate between, and put the low end possibly, and then put but not to exceed. That way you would have both ends. I don't know if it's appropriate. I mean, if you're going to put the 7%, and we're concerned about the truth of the matter, and it might be lower, maybe the range should be there.
Okay. Let me work with Mr. Cafizo on that, and I think we can cross-reference, because we do want to direct them to that table that Mr. Cafizo just mentioned.
Okay.
That's where the rubber hits the road.
You bet.
That's going to probably be reality, because frankly, if this thing passes in November, we're probably going to close these bond issues 45 days later, potentially. We're moving quick.
You bet.
And so that protects us in terms of any potential upside. So I think we can get to a meeting of the minds on that matter. We'll do our best.
Excellent. And like I said, if we have to stay with the 7 in order to protect the town, I'm okay with that. But like Ms. Hatch said, if we can provide a range in there, that would be wonderful. Okay. All right. Those are my only corrections. I'm opening it up to the other council members. Do any of the other council members have any questions?
I'd
Yes,
kind
ma'am.
of like them to go through the changes that they made and tell us why.
You bet.
Mayor, members of the council, I don't have a black line. There was actually a substantial amount of changes. Oh, so the manager's taking care of me here. He helped me earlier, and I won't even tell you what he helped me with. I don't know if you have the black line version. Did you guys get the version? Oh, good.
Yes,
Okay. So this kind of shows you what we've changed. The added language is underscored. In the version I'm looking at, it's in blue. And so you can see how we've rearranged things. We've used consistently, for instance, on page 2, the term wastewater as opposed to sewer. There are some notes that are in brackets that we're going to deal with in the next version. You can see on page 3 the question about whether or not we're going to use Water Infrastructure Finance Authority. And I think the determination that we're going to base this election on the fact that WIFA will be the funding source. So that'll come out, and there'll be some conforming changes there. As I mentioned earlier, there's still some blanks that are just purely administrative, getting information from the county elections department to complete the date as to when arguments are due. I think most of the changes were in the informational pamphlet. If you look starting at page B3, you can see the language that was added there at the suggestion of either the council or staff. And again, there's some place savers in terms of adjustments we're going to have to make to the language based on the fact that we've decided to use WIFA. There was some cleanup language in terms of how property taxes work to make that a little clearer. Top of page B6, there were some cleanup language provided to exactly what we're going to use bond proceeds for. There was some, again, changes on the description of the Highway 89 improvements. We'll obviously further incorporate what the mayor suggested tonight in the next draft. I think the question and answer format generally has helped this and makes it a little bit more readable. Again, certain of this information will be updated based on some determinations we made this week and the direction from council. Other than that, I think, and there are a couple of paragraphs we're going to have to do some additional cleanup work on. The numbers are slightly refined on page B11. The presentation is pretty straightforward there, and you can pretty easily see what's going on. So other than that, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
B6 at the top, the change from D to A domestic water. In reality, we're not acquiring an entire water system, so is that why you're using A instead of D?
I have to admit, I'm not sure who was the author of that change, but I suspect that
Or
may have
maybe
been-
it should be a portion of the domestic water system, I'm not sure.
It's also that way on page 2.
Yeah.
So, we can say that a portion of,
Yeah, portion of a domestic water system.
And I think that's better language in both of those. Because otherwise, that may raise the eyebrows of certain people.
Okay, and,
We can charge them 20% extra.
okay, that was on page Bravo 6, and Ms. McKee, you said which other
Page 2
page?
at the bottom, third, red and blue markup.
yeah, got it. We'll conform all of that.
Okay, excellent. Other questions or revisions? Now, remember tonight, the main two that we have to deal with are from the very beginning of the pamphlet to page A1, the informational pamphlet, which begins on page Bravo, I guess it would really begin on page Bravo 3. We will still, I imagine, be working on in the next couple of meetings, but up to the official ballot and the resolution itself are what we need to spend the majority of our time on tonight. Yes,
And I
ma'am?
think there's only one precinct in Chino Valley now, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay,
There's a single precinct, I believe, now.
is that correct, sir?
We could have the facts on that checked and corrected.
Okay.
We're working with county elections to get that.
Okay.
We'll have that for the next meeting.
You bet. Yeah, we had the county election folks come and speak to us here, so that's good. We need them involved. All right. Had to take a jab at a county official. It's a sickness. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, just one more point. As you know, we've been working with staff closely on the WIFA applications. We have 2 applications. One's clean water and one's drinking water. 2 separate programs, 2 separate funding sources. Those are on my desk, waiting for my review when I get back in the morning. I want to thank staff for all their time, energy, and effort. So the goal is to have that in, if not tomorrow or Thursday morning, we will hand deliver the WIFA applications for your bond election in front of you. And then they're going to take that information and get back with us as soon as they can on subsidies, forgivable principal eligibility, all those little details. So bear with us, and I know you know that, but I wanted to let you know that we've made a lot of progress with respect to the application. We're going to submit it, and we're looking forward to hearing back from them. And we're hoping to get some good news that we can potentially, subject to Mr. Cafizo's approval, incorporate into our voter pamphlet. So bear with us on that.
Okay,
Thank you.
and thank you for that announcement, because our audience needs to be brought up to speed on that also.
Okay, no, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other additions or corrections in the first part of the pamphlet, beginning from the front all the way up to page Alpha 1? That would cover our resolution and our official ballot.
Wait a minute.
So this should be ready to vote at the next council meeting if this is...
Yeah, once the revisions have been
Once
added
revisions are
in.
made, so-
Yes, sir, that's what I'm
So we can
hoping
get
we
this
can
thing
get all
moving.
the bugs knocked out of these pages tonight. Like I said, the informational ballot, the last part, is something that's going to probably take a bit more time. Yes, ma'am.
Am I allowed to ask a question on the informational?
Oh, you bet, you bet.
On page 13, I think I brought it up before, to vote an early absentee ballot in person, appear in person at the Town of Chino Valley Town Clerk's office, and no later than the close of business. Voting will be permitted Monday through Friday. I don't know that you can vote at our town clerk's office. It's going to be if somebody actually shows up there. Did we confirm that that's the way that that's supposed to be handled?
You bet. And that's the second paragraph from the bottom, ma'am?
It is.
On page Bravo 13.
Yeah, because the county normally handles our, requesting a ballot, but showing up and voting right there in person requires them to check the appropriate documents and take time and.
Right, Mayor, members of the council, again, as the mayor mentioned, this portion is here as a place saver. We'll work with county elections, and there's a gentleman named Bill Doyle, Election Operations Services, who handles your elections. So Bill generally cleans this language up. So I'm not an election expert and don't want to pretend to be one, and I can't tell you whether or not there will be a polling place for the 2014 general election or not. At this point, I don't know that. I just don't know the answer to that question. That's why we leave it to the county and Bill to do that. So this will be corrected for that purpose. Again, the intent of this is to set up the format for the pamphlet. People that are more familiar with the election procedures will deal with the question that the councilperson is asking about.
If you would please call his attention
Sure.
to that. Second paragraph from the bottom on page Bravo 13.
Got it. I put a
Excellent, thank you.
put a place saver by it.
Okay, and forgive me for wanting to keep our attention on the first part of it. We can ask questions in the second part this evening. I just wanted to make sure that the first part was ready to go to press with the changes that our council suggests. All right, and any questions, Ms. McKee, Vice Mayor?
No.
No. Okay.
The change on B9, approximate, did I miss this explanation? The change of the cost of issuance of the bonds, is that because of the interest rate, or went from 80 to 150?
Right. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, that was when this was drafted, somebody put the $80,000 in there. I increased that because the costs are going to be higher than that, just due to the time, energy, and effort on this particular, that's an estimate. We like to be high, but I increased that just because of the time, energy, and effort that's gone into the project thus far.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
That's money we pay to your company?
Right, that'll be my fees, Michael's fees, credit rating fees if we need any of those, some of the election expenses, I think, but primarily the professional fees to our firms.
Okay, thank
And
you.
if the bond fails, we don't pay them?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Other questions? Ma'am?
Thank you.
Did Mr. Wojcik have?
Do you have any questions?
Okay, excellent. I would like to move that we instruct our staff to get the ballot language and the resolution onto our next agenda, so that have these changes incorporated into it, and have it on our next agenda so that we can vote on it.
Second.
Okay? Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to action item 8B, consideration and possible action to approve changes to Town of Chino Valley Personnel Policy dated 9/12/2002, policy number 710, holidays, effective 7/1/2014. And thank you, Mr. Cafiso and Mr. Reeder, for your time. I appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This agenda item is asking for a revision to our policy 710 titled Holidays. Currently, we bank holiday leave time, up to 8 hours per holiday when you work on a holiday. You also get paid time and a half for all the hours that you work on a holiday. So this policy takes away the banking of the holiday hours and pays the employee up to 8 hours instead for the holidays. So
Okay.
because the council adopted this employee manual back in 2002, I have to bring revisions to you, so.
You bet.
Do you have any questions on it?
All right. Are there any questions on this side of council? Any questions on this side? All right.
Okay, thank you.
Chair would entertain a
Move
motion.
to approve changes to Town of Chino Valley Personnel Policy dated 9/12/2002, policy number 710, holidays, effective 7/1/2014.
Second
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item C, consideration and possible action to approve the memorandum of understanding with Unisource Energy Services and approve an amount not to exceed $25,534.56 from the current fiscal year and $98,960.64 from fiscal year 14/15. And we have listed Mr. Stroud, but he's grown a beard. Okay. Yes, sir,
And he's
Mr.
gotten
Gritman.
much handsome, much more
All
handsome,
right.
so. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I don't know how to start this. I'm actually somewhat apologetic for bringing this thing finally to the council. We've been working on this for years with Unisource. As it says, and I should say, the situation and analysis is actually at the end of the agenda item instead of right after the council agenda. It's on page 280 of your packet. But in short, Chino Valley, back in 1997, approved a franchise agreement with Unisource, and this was voted on by our public, that has one word changed in it from every other city in the entire state, with the exception of 5. They got this through on 5 cities before everybody started picking it up. But in short, what it calls for is the town of Chino Valley to pay for the costs of Unisource relocation of gas conflicts associated with the town's capital projects. And all it is just a change of literally one word. It says it'll be paid for by, instead of company, it says municipality. And it was voted on. Robert and I have talked to Phyllis ad nauseum about how we can challenge this, and she has come back and said, we're stuck. So what we came up with is an MOU to help quantify and help lay out how we deal with this. The 2 items that you have in front of you as far as the dollar figures are associated with 2 specific projects. The box culvert at Road 2 North in the Santa Cruz Wash, and the box culvert at Road 3 North, right by the Public Works Building. When we come up with costs on our capital projects, we do this years in advance. The Road 3 North project, we literally came up with those costs back in 8 and 9.
Wow.
And long before we ever knew we ever actually had a gas conflict there. The Road 2 North project was completely designed, bid, had a contractor waiting there before we finally got the cost from Unisource to do the gas line relocation. So the way that it's set up right now, it doesn't work. We can't be bringing these large change orders. And I can't even begin to defend Unisource on their numbers. When we did the Road 3 North project, the entire project was $280,000. Their change order is $98,000. It's almost 50%. It's 30% of the entire project, just this one change order, or this one gas line resolution. But these are their costs. They say that this is what they've gotten them down to. I've provided you with all of their litany of invoices and everything else that they gave to us on how they came up with these numbers. The MOU is trying to nail down how we go about getting this issue resolved. The way that it's written, it calls for the town to submit to Unisource 30%, 60%, 90%, and 100% plans. It calls for Unisource to begin the design of their gas, whatever their gas conflict is, at the 30% plans right now. For example, Unisource doesn't do that. We will have a gas conflict on the drainage project up in Chino Meadows Units 2 and 5, the one that's under design right now. We know there's a gas conflict there. We have submitted 90% plans to them. To date, Unisource has not started the design on their gas line conflict. However, we're trying to implement the MOU as best as we can so that we can incorporate this, whatever this cost is going to be to the town, into the project whenever it bids and comes to you. How we're doing this is the county, I won't say it was a favor for us, but the county split that project into two phasings. The upcoming fiscal year, 14-15, and then the next fiscal year, 15-16. So what we're doing is Lion Engineering is currently on hold for a little bit until Unisource gets us a price. We're going to shorten the project so that we can make sure that we get all the maximum amount of dollars built that the county has funded for us in the 14-15 year. There's no gas conflicts in the second phase of it, and then we'll complete the project in the remaining and tell the county that they need to bump the monies a little bit if we need a little bit more.
Okay.
Dan Cherry up at Flood Control District is more than willing to work with us on this. He's aware of how they're funding this project. So we're trying to implement the MOU as it is right now. But as I said, we're at 90% plans, and Unisource still hasn't started their design yet.
Okay.
So we're holding off on completion of that. But in short, what you have in front of you now are two cost estimates that Unisource says that we owe them for the box culvert at Road 2 North, that's the $28,000, and then the $90,000+ is the box at Road 3 North. I would like to tell you, since this is all discretionary approval, that the council could vote no on this tonight. And I'm sure Phyllis would probably stand up and chime in and say something. I don't know. It just is painful to bring something like this in front of you. This is not how any other city operates when it comes to utility conflicts for capital projects. It's just not.
Okay, just briefly before we add anything in for the sake of our folks at home, this is basically as we, if you were to go into a garage and ask your mechanic, I've got a knocking sound, can you give me an estimate? He may have to get a little bit under the hood, but you need some kind of estimate as early as possible. And that's what our MOU, this memorandum of understanding is basically asking Unisource a little earlier in the game, please let us know what this is going to run so we even know whether we can go forward with the project. Is that
Yes,
25 words or
that's
less?
Actually, that's very correct. That's exactly correct. And I should kind of narrow this down a little bit. We run into these types of gas conflicts primarily with box culvert and drainage styles of projects. When we do a water and sewer line, the water or a sewer line, we can design around them. Sewer is always below where gas is going to be. Water, since it's under pressure, we can move it around if we have any future gas conflicts. The only time that we run into this where we have no choice is when I'm doing a drainage project. I've got a channel on the upstream, I've got a channel on the downstream, and I can't change how the water flows through this thing, and their gas line is in the middle of all of that. So it primarily is hitting us on these box styles of projects. The box culvert on Center Street, we don't have any gas conflict. There's no gas there. So we don't anticipate anything on that. The only one we foresee on the upcoming that we have is the drainage project at Chino Meadows Units 2 and 5.
Okay, I just, thank you. I just wanted to let our audience at home know basically what this memorandum of understanding was.
And I do want to say one thing, because there is an exception in here. If we determine that Unisource's gas line is not built to a standard depth, we're saying we don't have to pay for your gas line relocation. We're only paying for gas line relocations that meet the industry standards on how we're going to pay for this.
You bet.
Unisource may or may not balk at that. We'll see.
At least we have, as a council, if we voted in, we will have made a statement that this is the way we want to do business. Mr. Smith, I believe you were next.
Yes, Mayor, thank you for the time, and thank you, Ron, for the details. I did want to just briefly summarize the purpose of the MOU. The initial purpose of the MOU is timing. We need their price from them sooner so we can report it to you, and it can be authorized by the council before the actual work is done. That is not the way they typically do work. Generally, you have to cut them a check, and then they get out and start working. So we had to change that first. And since the franchise agreement does not address that, The franchise agreement also does not address what the town will and won't pay for. And just as Ron said, if it's substandard, we don't believe the town of Chino Valley should have to pay for relocation of it.
Okay.
So trying to create it is non-binding, it is not a contract, but it is an understanding of how the two entities will work with each other so we can incorporate it in our procurement process and have it authorized prior to work.
You bet. And we as a council will know the cost before it takes place. All right. Did you have anything, Ms. Smiley?
Yeah, Mayor, I just wanted to request that you approve these by separate motion, doing the expenses in one motion and approve the MOU in a separate motion, because really they're two separate items.
Okay, thank you. Expenses and MOU. Okay, Ms. Hatch, you had a question.
What if we paid them what we thought was reasonable value? Would they go after us? Would they have a basis for going after us, given their delay?
Possibly.
As I said, council can vote no on this, and I'll jump up and down, and Phyllis will shake her head, but
It's the middle of summer, we don't need heat, so just a thought.
no, yeah, this is painful. I'm sorry, I don't know how else to put it.
I knew we should move to solar for everything.
There you go.
Get rid of the gas company.
There you go.
Ms. Smiley, before I interrupted, did you have something? No? Okay. Any other questions from council?
After we
Yes.
vote, I have a comment.
After we vote, you have a comment? Okay, usually when we vote, that's it, so if you have a comment,
Okay, I have
please
a comment now.
let us
I
know.
would like to see more information in the agenda. I had to spend a lot of time going through everything and back before I realized what everything was about. It would have been really, if I'd had some information, what this money value was spent on. It's just a real sketchy agenda item.
Okay, so more information in the agenda item itself. All right, thank you.
That way I could read it and then I would know exactly where to go rather than have to go through step by step through all the stuff.
Okay. Mr. Smith?
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, our apologies. We did not have the situation and analysis up front and center for council to see. It was a little buried in the packet.
Okay,
Just nitpicking.
okay,
No,
Thank
I
you.
think you're right.
okay.
It's an awful lot of work to go through all of that. And you start through it and you don't know what you're looking for, and you're going through it one by one, trying to figure it out, and you're going crazy, and then
Okay.
you waste, yeah, I think he's right.
You bet. A little more explanation in the heading itself, Mr.
And fewer
Smith.
trees.
Fewer trees, all right.
Are now.
All right, thank you. Okay, are there any further questions? These are projects where, and this has been a real thorn in our side. You have to get into the project before you find out how much it's going to cost, and that's hard for us as a council to swallow, so. All right, if there's no further questions, the chair would entertain.
I'll put this into two motions. The first motion is to approve the memorandum understanding with Unisource Energy Services.
Okay,
Second it?
and we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Yes, sir.
The second motion is to approve an amount not to exceed $25,534.56 from current fiscal year and $98,960.64 from FY 14-15.
Second it?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Yeah, it is sort of disappointing to get the bill after they slam the hood, so. Okay.
That's crazy.
All right, item D, public hearing and consideration and possible action to approve resolution number 14-1039, adopting a final budget for fiscal year 2014-2015, and proposed expenditure limitation for the same year in the amount of $29,966,774. That doesn't make sense. Okay, $29,966,774. See, I reduced the budget, and I'm not even a finance
You
guy.
didn't even have to do it with
All
a
right.
stroke of a pen. You could just do
There you
it by
go. I'll go one better, $29, which includes the statements and estimates of the Chino Valley Street Lighting Improvement Districts. Mr. Duffy.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, we'll need to have a public hearing, but I was hoping I could do a brief presentation on the budget, and then we can go into a public hearing.
Open
if
the
that'd be
public
okay.
hearing, yes, sir.
Okay. I just really want to hit some of the highlights, but I want to remind the public and council that the budget process is almost year-round. We get pretty serious in February after council usually has a retreat in December or January, starts giving us some priorities. We start looking at projects. In February, we set up our budget calendar, we distribute budget worksheets to the departments, and that's when I first take a look at the revenue projections for the year. In March, we do our budget workshops with departments and the town manager. I meet with the departments first, and then we prepare all the numbers, and we bring them to the town manager and go over them in really detail. We hit the lines one after another after another. In April, we do our budget hearings with council, as you know. We just adopted the tentative budget in May, and then after the tentative budget is published in the paper 2 times, put on the website, then we come to tonight and we basically adopt the final budget if there's no changes. Tonight we'll be adopting Budget Resolution 14-1036 for a total amount of $29,966,774. I look back in the history, and this is not the town's largest budget. They were passing some up in the 40s plus millions. So I thought it was a lot, but it's like, nope. We have the official state budget forms in your packet. Of course, the entire budget's been on the homepage of the website since we adopted the tentative. And tomorrow, after final adoption, we've made just a couple. We have a few small edits. None of the numbers have changed that we're going to make. And we have covers coming, and then we'll put out a final budget form. Okay. And we'll, of course, post that on the website as soon as it's available within the next few days. Our total budget compared to last fiscal year is $29 million, almost $30 million. And last year, it was $16 million, just about $17 million. Mm-hmm. The biggest difference is we've applied for several grants. And as you know, the town of Chino Valley, we set our expenditure limitation. So whether we receive the grants or not, we need to increase the budget. So if we do receive them, we can spend them. The same thing with the proposed bond issue. That's in the capital improvement fund, so we had to increase that. So it's not like we're just increasing and spending all this money. Our total operating budget hasn't really gone up at all. We've just added grants and potential future capital projects in there. So that's why it's inflated. For example, the general fund went from $7,400,000 to $7,850,000. That's just the increase in day-to-day operations. This year, some of the budget highlights, of course, we proposed a balanced budget, working with council and staff. We've instituted the third phase of the compensation and class study. We have some equipment acquisition and replacement proposed, lease purchase. We'll be bringing those back, I think, at the next meeting, a few of those. Of course, we have the GEO bond projects, the Yavapai drainage project, the Unisource gas payment, the second one that you just approved, and the road impact fee projects. We also have some grants, and one of the bigger ones this year is the CDBG grant. And we've added some other community comparisons. And we're finally getting to the point where we're starting to get enough data that we can start comparing ourselves to other communities in certain ways. So I think that's a major step forward for us. Just to go through the funds quickly, as you can see, our total revenues, what we budgeted this year was $7,358,000 in the general fund. We're actually going to come in a little bit better than that. But the thing to note on this chart is we only thought we'd increase our fund balance by $21,000. Well, through the savings of the departments and as council's direction, we budget very conservatively. We budget our revenues up 2% and our expenses about 3% unless we have some better data. But this allows us, this is the second year that I've seen this allows us to roll a significant amount of savings over into the next fiscal year. And this year, we're projecting $608,000. I just spent on Monday, I went through and just reviewed to make sure our estimates were still good, so I was telling you a good number. And I'm anticipating that number is even going to be a little bit greater. So it's good, it's departments being really responsible with the town's funds, and it's just good direction from council on how we should budget. This is the perfect way to budget. We should see this type of thing. We should have a few $100,000 plus every year rolling over and helping our fund balance. So some of the departments that saved and some of their savings is we didn't have an election that we planned for. The police department, because of shortages, staff shortages, are saved about $130,000. Recreation, we didn't fill a part-time salary position. We had some park maintenance savings. The aquatic center, we ran it a lot cheaper than we planned on. All the other departments, and of course, we didn't spend our contingency. So all those add up to about that $608,000. We do have a few departments, though, that weren't as good. And unfortunately, the finance department was one of them, and animal control. And I put too close to call because I think we're going to be under budget. But on July 8th, I might be coming back and saying we need a few $1,000s for those. Planning, because of the personnel changes we made, is going to be over by $35,000, and the senior center by $15,000. And that's really the cost of food that has gone up and has affected everybody. So I will bring these back as our annual budget adjustments at the July 8th meeting for you guys to review, and any others. With the extra $608,000, we're going to use $450,000 this next budget year, and basically put $158,000 in reserve. Our reserves, we were able to fully fund our reserves this year, which I think was a major accomplishment for the town in the general fund. Last year, we projected our reserves would be $288,000 short. Well, with the carryover and where we're estimating, we are basically going to be able to fully fund them and actually overfund them next year by about $100,000. So we made a nice, good progress this year. Our HERF fund, we had a significant fund balance of $669,000, and as we've been talking, that we're trying to use that money, get it down, use the money as quickly as we possible to put as much work on the roads as we possibly can. This year, we've done about $300,000, and next year, we'll be able to do $175,000. Unfortunately, even though the HERF revenues, we did see a slight increase of $35,000, our road budgets after this budget year, our road materials amount is going to be between $50,000 and $75,000. So this next budget year is probably the last year, unless something changes, that we can put a significant amount on the roads. So it's an issue we do need to address in the next budget year. Our capital improvement funds, this is where you see all the bond expenditures, and it's not 13.5 because we're going to split it over a couple fiscal years. We're still continuing the transfers to the general fund, the transfer to the water enterprise fund, and of course, debt service. And the capital improvement fund, for our audience, just to let you know, is 1% of our sales tax comes over to the capital improvement fund and is used for the debt service, water, wastewater, and certain things. Our water enterprise funds and our sewer enterprise funds, as Mr. Jackson can attest to, are still in the hole. And these are actual numbers. We're projecting that we're going to be about $151,000 in the hole this year and about $280,000 in the hole next year. And that's just really increased maintenance expenses. So again, we're going to emphasize we need more accounts. We need to get these enterprise funds profitable. Our sewer fund, the only difference there is they have fund balance available. And as you can see, we're going to end the year with about $1.3 million in fund balance, and that's because of the building activity we've had that have helped increase the impact fee, or the buy-in fees. So the buy-in fees have really bolstered where we thought that fund balance was going to be, because last year we budgeted for 0 building activity, and we had quite a bit this year. But we're still, that fund balance, although it bumped up this year, it's still heading down. So the water fund, we don't have the money to cover it. We have to cover it from the general fund. The sewer fund, if we keep on this trend, in about 3 or 4 years, we're going to be out of money. So we'll be in the same boat. So we have to add new accounts. And so in summary, the general fund government is stable. We're covering our day-to-day operations, and we fully funded our general fund reserves. We anticipate the town to continue the trend of being under budget at the end of each fiscal year, and the reserve balances continue to grow. And again, that goes back to the council's conservative approach to budgeting. The water and enterprise funds, as I just mentioned, they're the ones that we need to take a look at. I do want to thank Mayor and Council, of course, for your guidance and your leadership and directing us how we put this together, but Robert Smith and all the department heads who put a significant amount of time into putting the budget together. We fully anticipate this budget to receive the GFOA award. When we got it last year, they gave us comments of things to improve, move things different directions, and we've incorporated most of those changes in this year's budget and added a new section. So we're fully anticipating that this will be another award-winning budget for the town. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to open a public hearing.
I move to open the public hearing on the budget for 2014-2015.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Public hearing is now open. Do we have any questions from council regarding the budget? Any questions from the audience? Okay. That was a short public hearing, so.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second it.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. The second part of that is we would entertain a motion to approve resolution number 14-1039.
Mayor?
Oh, yes, sir.
Just a quick scrivener's error on page 285 of 306. The title, resolution number 14-1039, fourth line down in the paragraph, there needs to be a space between setting and the word "and."
Okay. 285 to 306, and this
I
is the
know.
fourth paragraph down.
Fourth line down in the title of the resolution.
Oh, in the title of the resolution. Oh, Settingen.
Yeah, it just caught my eye, so.
Oh, yeah.
I understand that.
That's Chino.
That's Chino.
I have it. Okay. Okay, no further problems. Okay, thank you.
We're going to get rocked and stoned as we go out
All
the
right.
door.
Okay. The chair would entertain a motion to approve this resolution as correct.
Motion to approve resolution number 14-1039, adopting a final budget and proposed expenditures limitation for the fiscal year 2014-2015 in the amount of $29,966,774.
Second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item E, consideration and possible action to amend the Unified Development Ordinance, UDO, to regulate the manner and placement of assisted living facilities, assisted living homes, recovery homes, and related special purpose residences. Ms. Maida.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you, you have the ordinance that will enact some changes to the UDO that we've been talking about for quite some time now. There are two things that will be regulated in this ordinance. First would be, of course, the sober homes that we've talked about at length. And secondly, while we were at it, we decided that it would be a good time to update some of the language concerning assisted living centers and assisted living homes, as those smaller settings for the elderly have become more popular. It's not something that the UDO really addresses, and we have had someone come forward that is interested in opening one of those businesses, so this was an opportune time to incorporate that as a special purpose residence as well. As you all know, there's a huge recovery industry in this area, and that some of the surrounding municipalities and actually the unincorporated portions of the county are dealing with these right now because of the impact that they can have on the community. Because addictions are protected under the Fair Housing Act, as long as someone is sober and is a recovering addict, as opposed to being an addict, it's something that we need to be able to address and provide places for these homes to be located. During our public hearings and discussions, we discussed at length the issue with sex offenders being a part of this community and the regulations for those sorts of people. They are not protected under the Fair Housing. There is no protection under Fair Housing Act for sex offenders, so they would have to register in accordance with the law that under which they are convicted, whether it be federal or state, and with the police, so that we know that they're there. And there's also language in the actual amendments that talks about people who could have presented danger to the community, so that they couldn't be included as well. In order so that these activities are transparent and the community has a chance to respond, we've included almost all of these as conditional uses with a few exceptions, so that there is an opportunity for surrounding neighbors and other members of the community to be able to have some input on the location and placement of these uses. In terms of the UDO and the way we regulate nursing homes and elder care facilities, right now all we have is a nursing home. We don't provide for an assisted living facility or a home for the elderly to live in that the state defines as an assisted living home. And so we rolled those in as well. The assisted living home is for populations of 10 or less in a single home, and then the assisted living centers are 11 and more. So we've included that as well, and added those definitions into the language. So the assisted living homes and recovery homes would be conditional uses in all of the AR zoning districts, 36, 5, 4, the 2.5 acre single-family residential, single-family 2 acre, 2.5, 1.6, 1 acre, 0.16 acre. And then the assisted living centers, assisted living homes, and recovery homes are permitted uses in the multiple family residential and commercial light. And then to also add some more descriptive language in the text of the amendment, you should have a copy of the ordinance 14-785, which is an omnibus amendment for all of these changes. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, just a quick comment. Thank you for following the council's wishes insofar as minimum separation in the recovery homes.
Yes, that is in there.
I noticed you had put that in. Thank you. Yes, Ms. Hatch.
I know that Arizona favors assisted living homes for the elderly. And my question deals with a little bit more clarification on single family, as we define a single family home on 1 acre.
Correct.
Related, unrelated. And the definition of recovery residence would have up to 10, is that correct?
No, I think
it would be unrelated?
It's 2 per bedroom.
Okay, but they're unrelated, right?
Yes.
And when you talk about a single-family residence, how do you define a single-family residence? And don't generally have more than one
Well, what we
group of
talk about
related
in here,
people.
the amendment we have here talks about a single housekeeping unit, which is how these are regulated, is a single housekeeping unit as opposed to a single-family residence.
Yeah, but you're putting it in a zone that is a single-family residence, and that would not meet the definition of a single-family residence.
But the single-family residence definition, as I recall, allows for unrelated persons living together.
But how many? I don't.
Off the top of my head, I want to say it's 3, but I can't be, I'd have to go drag out the UDO.
And this is a much higher number than the 3.
Okay.
Right.
And I think that that's a conflict.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor and Councilwoman Hatch, there are, in a single-family residential zoning district, there are different uses that are permitted. One use is single-family residence, and another use with a conditional use permit would be a recovery residence. So this is a different use allowed in that same district.
Still in all, if it's single-family, you're limited on the relationship and the number of relationships. So a recovery home should have the same limits in terms of related and unrelated people. Otherwise, even though a recovery home's allowable, you should have the same limits that would normally be required in a single-family residence. It should meet the same requirements in terms of relationships and not more.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, but what I'm trying to explain is that they're different uses. Like
I
you
understand
would
that, but the different use should not extend beyond the number of people.
Okay.
I don't think it extends, I understand what you're saying, but it doesn't.
If you really want to get into
Hold for
it,
just a second, please. Miss, I feel like a
those
traffic cop.
definitions of family as being related persons have been struck down by the Supreme Court. So in a situation where like the Fair Housing Act requires that you not treat a disabled person or a person of color or national origin or sex or
Right.
any of those things differently from another
that's-
resident.
And
So-
that's exactly what I'm saying. You should
So
have this.
it may be that what needs to be done, as well as this ordinance, is also changing your definition of family,
Okay.
as
Yes,
in
ma'am.
single family.
Yeah, what I'm saying is it's an inconsistent. You can't treat one group differently than the other, and before we pass this, we need to be looking at that for those sections. I don't have a problem for multifamily or agricultural or where those things are more standard, but if you're going to, it's not a good idea to change this unless you're going to be consistent across the board.
While we're waiting for Miss Smiley, Miss Mayday, you had something.
Yes, I understand what you're saying in terms of the number of related persons, and it should not be different in a single-family residence, but I think as Phyllis was trying to explain, that we also have other things that are allowed in the single-family residential zoning district that are not single-family. They can have...
A church, you can have a church, an SR1, and...
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Please let Miss Mayday
But what I'm
finish.
trying to explain is that you can have that same density per household as a single family. You can have that same density per household without being a single family. And as Ms. Smiley just talked about, the Supreme Court has thrown out a lot of the definitions of family that a lot of municipalities run by. So we have a definition of family in our UDO that does not meet constitutional muster.
Right, and it needs to be changed at the same time this goes into effect to make everything consistent.
Okay.
But
now, if you two will hold for a minute, I think Miss Smiley's available. Yes, ma'am. Did you have anything? Fine. All right. Ms. Hatch, I believe this is a pertinent question. This concept of what a family is, or the usage of a single family residence. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
We honestly don't have a choice because of the disability, but we do have to make everything consistent. If you're going to pass this at the same time, we must change the other, everything to be consistent.
Okay, all right. Excuse me. Is this as really time-sensitive, Miss Mayday?
no, we can certainly bring it back if council
Okay.
wishes.
All right. I will accept a motion for
I
that.
make a motion to table this item until we have it worked out and bring it back in the next
Sure.
council
All
meeting.
right. Okay, we have a motion and a second to table it, hopefully till our next council meeting. All right, thank you very much. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I have to ask Miss Smiley if I would be out of order to, as we go back to our executive session items, would I be out of order if I asked if we could table one of our executive session items, since one of our council members is missing who is key to the discussion? And that item would be item B. Could I put that forth as a motion that we
May I make a
cancel that?
Actually, Mayor, you don't have to do any action with that item because the way the executive session is worded, it says that council may vote to recess the regular meeting and hold an executive session.
Okay.
So you may vote to only go into executive session to consider item A.
Okay. All right, so you want to make that motion, sir?
I make a motion to go in executive session to discuss item 7A with the attorney.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. We're now going into executive session to deal with item 7A.
You back there in the corner. You're my hero. You stay around regardless of what.
What can I say? Anybody that made it in the Navy for more than 20 years is still in one piece?
It's a little strange, right?
No, not strange, they're extremely weird.
Weird. I can't disagree with you at all.
And then you got the one that's even worse, and he's probably a machinist maybe, something.
Yeah, he was a machinist.
I can't go in because the dog goes in or yell at me.
Oh. Make a motion. Motion to adjourn.
Oh, you sorry dog. A motion in 6 seconds.
We have to.
Put it in the house.
We have to. come back
Motion,
in a
motion,
second.
yeah.
Okay, we're reconvened. The
Second.
chair would now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
And 2 seconds, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And a good night
You
to all.
gotta do it right.